Hey guys, welcome back to another Learn to Draw video. So, today's lesson we are going to work on 2-point perspective. The last video we covered was 1-point perspective, so today we are going to work on 2-point perspective. Hopefully the video shouldn't take as long, as hopefully you'll be able to catch on very quickly. If you are looking to get a deeper understanding of perspective, I would recommend getting one or two of the recommended books that I have showed you guys in the previous videos. One of them, the one that I would get right off the bat would be Perspective Made Easy, which is this book right here. I know I talked about it previously. It's about 200 pages, around 200 pages. It's got a lot of useful information, especially if you are looking to just get a general grasp of perspective. And we'll be covering a lot of the things that's within this book. I think for the most part, a good majority of perspective books cover what you will cover in here, as well as, depending on the book, more in-depth stuff. The other book I would highly recommend, especially if you're trying to create your own stories, would be Framed Perspective. This is also one of the other books that I recommended, by Marcus Matu Mestri. I hope I pronounced his name right. Matu Mestri. I hope I pronounced it correctly. But this is definitely another book I would highly recommend. It goes into everything that this book goes into, but also more deals with more of the storytelling aspect. If you're laying out images, it even talks about camera lenses at one point. But this is a book I would highly recommend. Now, I would say this is more in-depth than this one. If you're really trying to really just understand everything from as basic as possible, you need something simple, something that you don't feel is not going to overwhelm you. This would be the book that I would recommend. And then the Frame Perspective books. And then later on, maybe the in-depth, hardcore how to draw book by Scott Robertson and Thomas Bertling. The other book that I also recommended was the Perspective for Artists book. And what I would recommend, if you don't want to spend the money on purchasing these books, go see if they have them at your local library. And that will also maybe allow you to, or go to your local bookstore. Hey, stop. And read through the pages. Just pick a few random pages and kind of read through them and see if the way that particular artist words things, if that's something that you think you would be able to grasp. Because the way Ernest Norling, which is the Perspective Made Easy, the way he words things is different from the way Marcus, who does Frame Perspective, it's different from the way he words things. So you might find it that it's easier to comprehend one artist over the other. So, but what we're gonna do real quick, I just want to show you guys, like, we're gonna do a quick warm-up. Will probably take like 5 minutes, and then so you can warm up with me, because warming up is going to be important when you draw. I'm going to be using a pen just so you guys can actually see everything, and then we'll get into some terminology that I do want to go over with you guys, which I have over here, and then we will get into the 2-point perspective. I'll kind of break down what 2-point perspective is. Like I said, hopefully it doesn't take too long to really explain that one. And then I'll give you guys some exercises. And then on the next video, we'll try to do some images together of some 1-point images, and then maybe a separate video of some 2-point perspective images, so that way you can kind of see how you can apply these things. And I'll try to do, when it comes to those images, I'll try to do like 2 of them that are fantasy, and then maybe 2 of them that are kind of real world. And then when I do the 2-point perspective, I'll try to do the same thing, where I'll try to do 2-point perspective fantasy based images, and then 2 kind of real world referenced real life images that you might find around your house or outside. So we can do it that way, and we'll break it up into small shapes and build up from there, versus just straight drawing into a detailed image. So that way, hopefully you guys can kind of see how I would kind of lay down the framework to an image and build up from there. So I'm going to tilt this up a little bit. We're going to work with lines, and then we'll go into a few circles, and then a few I said ovals, circles, and then we'll do a few basic shapes just to kind of get warmed up, and then we will go into the 2-point perspective. I know we talked about this exercise of drawing 2 dots and ghosting the line and then trying to stop. Now, if you want, this is going to help with like accuracy here, but if you want, you can still go back to the lines that we did before, where we're trying to do just short lines, trying to keep those lines as straight as possible. And then when you feel more comfortable, expanding those lines out, trying to keep them as straight as possible. And you'll see that as you practice, you'll find a speed that works best for you. That's usually a good speed for me. If I go any faster, then I risk either not creating as straight of a line that I would like to, or even if I go super slow, my wrist might get kind of stuck on the paper, or I draw kind of wobbly lines. So this also helps you determine what speed really works for you. And it's not about being perfect. As you can see, I messed up here. We'll zoom in a little bit. Like, I'm not perfect with these exercises. It's not meant to be perfect, right? You're really just warming up. And it also lets you know that you can get an idea of what your arm is doing when you draw. So with these particular 3, I know that as I'm extending that line away from my body, my hand or my motion is going slightly upward. So I know that I kind of need to compensate for that, and kind of remember to kind of either bring it down a little bit as I get closer, or as I get further away from my body, to compensate for my hand normally going upward. And sometimes that doesn't always work. Like, I forget, or it doesn't, kind of creates a little bit of not of a straight line, but I know that my body naturally will do that. And that's okay. Because if you really want a straight line, you can spend years doing these exercises to help improve your line work. And really get good at drawing straight lines. Or if you want to, one of the things I mentioned previously in the other video it was more geared towards circles, but you can do it with a straight line, is constantly just practice drawing how you would normally draw a straight line. So you want to tilt that paper in a way that you know you would draw, and then, you know, just do this a few times, right? Get used to that motion, and then, you know, start building that muscle memory. Oop, didn't build it enough on that one, but start working on building that muscle memory. Remember, we also had that one exercise of you draw one line, right? And then you're going to go over it about 2 to 3 times, or 3 to 5 times, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can see that this is where I originally started, and I'm kind of going over it, right? Then we also have that area there. So if I'm going, do it again. That's where I'm stopping, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I came over here, and then this line has gotten really thick because I'm not completely tracing over, and that's completely fine. So now we're going to work on some circles. I'm going to ghost here before I lay down my pen. Sorry about that, guys. My dog was barking. That's a horrible circle, and that's completely fine, but we're going to keep practicing. Remember, these are just warm-ups. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not to show off. It's to really not only get the muscle memory, but also warm up your arm, your hands, to really prepare yourself to draw. So we'll do a few more, and then we'll move over to ovals, and then a few simple shapes, and then we'll go from there. So that's a good circle. That's a pretty good circle. This one, not so much. I mean, it's okay, but I mean, you'll have your good ones and you'll have your bad ones. All right, so now let's go to ovals. You can either do them this way, you can do them this way, or you can do them this way, whichever is natural for you. Because if you feel natural doing this, well, this is just going to be turning your paper with that same motion to lay it down the way you want it. So I like turning my paper kind of to the side with a slight tilt. That's what's normal for me. So that's how I will draw my ovals, and they will come out more like this because that angle of the paper. Now, if my paper was straight like this, I would still have that slight tilt because that just feels more natural for me. So we're going to try to draw something like this. And I can see this is more flat than this up here. Like I said, we're just trying to really focus on the motion of these ovals. And like I was doing with the circles, I'm ghosting to kind of get that shape and motion down before I lay down that pencil or that pen. Well, technically it's a pen right now, but if you're using a pencil. All right, so just so I can pull out the pen so you guys can see, be a little bit clearer. This is a little bit more flat than I would like it to be. I feel like these are a little bit more, they're a little bit more flat than I would like the sides to be, right? An example like this one is definitely a lot wider than this section here. This one I feel like is pretty decent. This one too I feel like is pretty decent. So like I say, you're not looking for perfection, you're just trying to really get the motion down. As you can see with this one, this up here is a little bit flatter than the bottom here. So, and that's okay. All right, so we've got some lines, we've got some circles, we've got some ovals. Now we're gonna do some squares. we'll do like maybe 6 or 7 squares. And see for this here, I know that that's gonna overlap a little bit, but that's fine. This one too. So that I know already that when it comes to this side here, I'm pushing that line a little bit further than what it needs to be. So if I want to make a mental note to myself, like, hey, and I might need to stop a little bit shorter than what I'm used to. This is too short. To kind of compensate for me drawing over. There we go. Let's do triangle here. So even this, see, these lines are have a little bit of a curve to them. So that's something that I can keep in mind as I draw each triangle. Because you're not trying to rush when you're warming up. Trying to be conscious of what you're laying there. So these are getting a little bit better. Let's do one here. So let's do like that. So, all right. So that's our warm up, right? We did, like, that's a pretty good warm up. Now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and, flip your paper and do the other side, just to get that practice in. All right. So now let's talk about 2-point perspective. Actually have it here, didn't realize that. But first we're going to talk about vocabulary real quick that I kind of wanted to go over with you guys. I think I might have went over some of it the last time, but I want to kind of touch on certain things, and then just because I did do a little bit more reading into some of the books, and I think these are some better ways of explaining it. So when it comes to perspective, you have parallel lines. Parallel lines pretty much are 2 or more lines that never come in contact or cross each other. And these are a little bit of an examples here. You have ones that go across and the ones that go up and down. And I put it here, remain the same distance apart. And what that means is that as these lines continue to go across this way, right, they will always remain the same distance if they're parallel. Same here. All these lines, no matter how close they are here, they will remain the same distance apart as they continue to go up and down. There will never be a time where, as they're going up and down, this line starts to get closer to this line, right? And vice versa. Is no matter if they're parallel lines, right? No matter how long this line gets, there will never be a time where it starts dipping down or dipping up to meet one of the other lines or get closer to the other line. It will still remain the same distance apart. Perpendicular lines are the ones that come together to create a 90-degree angle. And here are examples. You have your T pretty much. You have your 90-degree angle here. You have things like this that create these 90 degrees. If you were creating, we'll do another example, right? We were doing that triangle, right? And I'm doing this. Well, these are going to be perpendicular lines because this creates a 90-degree angle here. So there's that. And then diagonal, commonly used to describe lines that are slanted. Diagonal lines, of course, can cross each other, or they can just be a diagonal line. Now, I will at some point try to maybe touch on this, but sometimes you'll have a horizon line. And these are more if you're trying to cause, like if you're drawing, you're trying to cause like this distortion, or not distortion, but this off balance type feel to your image, like the viewer is kind of off balance, then you would maybe use a diagonal line for your horizontal line, because at that point, like everything's kind of slanted, right? If you were drawing a house here, it's a garbage house, right? And then maybe there's a tree here, you know, you're trying to give off of a particular vibe. Maybe you would use this weird diagonal setup, right? To kind of indicate like that, like there's something not quite right about this, or that the character is feeling kind of off balance, right? Because that's really kind of what it looks like. It kind of looks like you're kind of tilting to the side. So another thing that diagonal lines are also used for is to help find the center of like a square or rectangle. And we'll talk about this later, but what you would normally do if you're trying to find the true center of a square or rectangle is, let me use another color here. You would create a diagonal, so from one end to the other here, and then same here, you would go from here to here, and then where these two diagonals meet, let me get another color here. I have a bunch of these because my friend gave them to me, so I've got a bunch of different colors. So here, where it beats at center here, this is your true center. So from there, you would be able to divide this properly into 4 different ways, or just 2, depending on what you want to do, right? And then say if you even wanted to find the center of those squares, you would do the exact same thing that we just did. And I know this is kind of a lesson within itself, but you would just, so you already had this one, right? And then you just go here. So you have the center here for each of these. And then you can break it down so many times. Because then you can go in again. Let's give an example here and divide this. And then if you want, divide this again. Right? And here. And here. And then, so you can really try to go as small as possible with dividing that down. But that's how you would find the center of a rectangle or a square. So, all right, so now we're going to talk about 2-point perspective. So when we talk about 2-point perspective, I wonder if I should use the pen. No, I'll probably use a pencil. If it doesn't come out dark enough, then I will switch to a pen. So let's do this. 0.5, yes. All right. So 2-point perspective means there's going to be 2 points for your perspective. Now remember, on 1 point, hopefully you guys, let me bring this down some. And 1 point, 1-point perspective, you only had to deal with 1 point. I'm going to use a ruler for this, right? Try to help make these lines a little bit neater. So with 1-point perspective, right, you had 1 point, and everything that you were doing is going towards that 1 point. Now, with the 1-point perspective, remember, you're looking at something head on, like you're looking at it straight ahead pretty much, as far as how can I do this? So if you're looking at from the top view, right? If this is you as the person and you're looking at something, you are seeing the front face of it. That's what you're doing. You're looking at the front face of it. This is what you're looking at. Now, so in this particular situation, because we're going to have the first vanishing point slightly over to the right hand side, I'm going to, this is the person, right? And then this is our here. And I'll do this as like the line here, right? So this is our vanishing, our horizon line. You might have, the box might be over slightly. So you're still looking at it straight on, but because it's not completely here, right? You're going to see some of that side. And I'm hoping that makes sense. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use a ruler. I'm going to keep these lines straight. And I know in the previous video I was free drawing the lines, and you still can if you want to try to practice your straight lines, but with perspective, to try to just be a little bit more accurate, we're just going to use the ruler, use a straight edge. So once again, we've got those sides right, and I guess this will be like a small recap of the 1 point perspective. So we're going to determine, right, how big we want this box to be. And I'm just going to pick somewhere, and I'm going to go, this is how wide I want to see the box. And then we're just going to kind of match everything up while trying to keep these lines as straight as possible, so that way they match up as close as possible. And don't expect to always be perfect with this. We're human, so nothing will, I won't say nothing, but most of the time you're not gonna have these perfectly lined up squares, especially for the lines that are in the back, right? So if it's slightly off, don't worry about it, you'll be okay. But so I'm still seeing the front of the box. That's still what I'm looking at. Like, these are still parallel lines. And actually, I will get a marker out here real quick. So these are still parallel lines. This is a still parallel line. This is a still parallel line. And then you'll have the ones in the back that are parallel lines. They don't interact, right? So these are still parallel lines to each other, which is indicator here. These are parallel lines. So this is what you're going to see. But because, oh, it's raining. But because the box is slightly moved over, you're gonna see some of the side. So you're gonna see some of this here, right? And that's what we're getting here. You're seeing some of this with that 1 point, but you still have the parallel lines for the front of the box, right? So I guess that's when so yeah, so you'll have those parallel lines for the 1 point. Now, if we're to take the same thing, and I'll kind of draw the same thing that we did here, right? If I'm looking as a person and I'm looking at a box, right? And now we're talking about 2 point perspective. Well, now we're looking at the box is rotated, right? So now we're doing something like this. So even though you're looking straight on, actually I'll move this guy over just a little bit, so that way it actually does look a little bit more straight on. So then looking straight on at the box, I'm seeing the edge of the box, right? Even if the box is slightly over here, so let's say it's still moved, right? It's moved over. I'm still seeing the edge. The edge is the the indicator that, well, I won't say the indicator, but this is going to show me that I'm looking at a 2-point perspective. And if you guys hear that, that is rain outside my window. So this is going to indicate that, so being able to see the corner, the connecting point of that square is going to be where it's going to be indicating a 2-point perspective. So this, I'm trying to see that I have something square. Give me a second. Let me see if I can, let's see if I can get it. Oh no, you know what? If you get a book, right? I'll use my tablet for a second. If I have my tablet and you see, I can't really do my tablet because it's too big. I don't think I have anything small enough to put within. Actually, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. So here's my book. If you see the corner like this, let me back up a little bit. You see the corner here, right? This is now 2-point perspective because you have a line going here, a set of parallel lines going to a vanishing point over here, and then a set of parallel lines going to another vanishing point. Now, if this was 1-point perspective, you would just see the first set of parallels, and I can still move it over, right? This is still 1-point perspective, but because of how far it's over, you still have another set of parallel lines that, well, you have these set of parallel lines, but you also have another set of parallel lines are actually going to a vanishing point. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit harder with me having to do it this way, but if anything, go get like a book or something and rotate it, and you'll have a better idea of what I am talking about. So the 2-point perspective, because we know we're going to see the edge of the item, we'll start there. Well, first, let's go ahead and just rough out our vanishing points. I'm going to have one all the way over here. So I'm just going to put VP, and I'll put left VP for left vanishing point. The other one's going to be a right vanishing point, so we'll just put R VP, and we'll have that over here. And remember, this here is our horizon line, which horizon line, you can think of it as like eye level, height of sight, or height of where your eyes are. So that's going to be more of when we're talking about your horizon line period is this line here, right? It's going to pretty much be where the sky meets the land, right? Sorry, where the sky meets the land. And of course that can alternate. So if you're standing high, maybe on a ladder, right, then that vanishing point is going to be moved up, or that horizon line is going to be moved up. So you'll see more land than you will sky. So, and vice versa. Maybe if you're laying down, you'll see more sky at that point than you will land. So I know we talked about that already, but just as a refresher. So we have our right vanishing point, our left vanishing point. Now we're going to determine where the box is going to be by drawing a straight line to indicate where the edge of the box is going to be. So I'm just going to pick, I'm going to just do center, as much of the center as I can. And that's going to be the edge of my box. So what we're going to do, similar to how we did this one, right? Even though it was only one side that we took, that we drew back to the vanishing point, we're going to do both sides now. So we're going to take the corner of this box, and we're going to line it up to the left vanishing point. We're going to go that one, then we're going to do the one down here. And you don't have to draw it too hard. Like, you can draw these lines pretty lightly because you don't want to like indent the paper. Because if you're drawing a more complicated scene and you're using maybe the same vanishing point for multiple images, you don't want to keep drawing so hard on that piece of paper to where now you can't even erase the marks for where the vanishing point is, or you might have to go redraw it on another piece of paper because that dot, from just constantly going over it, has now become so dark that even when you erase it, it's still slightly there. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but it's still slightly there. So yeah, so we'll draw light, try to draw lightly, like light enough to where you can see it, but not too light to where you're struggling. And it'll be a little bit easier for you guys because you guys are drawing on your own paper, right? I'm trying to make sure that you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So now we're going to determine how big or small we want this box. So I'm going to say I want something kind of average. So I'm just going to go here, right? And then what I'm going to do is, you can do this either way. You can either draw both lines to indicate what you want, or you can do one line at a time. Now I'm going to do both lines. So maybe I want this side to be, this is maybe like a rectangular box, right? This side's going to be the shortest, and then this side is going to be longer, right? So I'm not even drawing hard. I'm trying to draw as lightly as possible. So, and then, so I'm trying to make sure this is actually, sorry guys, give me one sec. So I was trying to make sure this was focusing a little bit. There we go. So then what we're going to do is, if I draw both these lines, then what we're going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing I did here. I'm going to take these lines and I'm going to march these lines out to the right vanishing point. I don't need to worry about the left vanishing point because these lines line up with this and already intersect. So I wouldn't have to go and line those up again because I've already got that indicator. So right now it's just following up with the vanishing point on the right side for these lines. And then here, now, once you kind of get used to this, or even if you kind of want to make your drawings a little bit neater, what you can do, and it's something that I kind of do sometimes, is that I will not draw the line fully out to the vanishing point. So I will line it up, right, like this, and then when I draw that line, I don't go all the way to the vanishing point, so it kind of stops. So that way I'm not constantly going over that dot or that vanishing point and doing the same thing that I kind of indicated here, where I'm constantly going over it, right? Constantly going over this vanishing point, and then when it comes to erasing, I now have this dark mark on my paper from the lead. So even there, right? So now what we would do at this point, because we can still see through the box, but we still have that other corner of the box that's not drawn in. So we can try to match it up as neatly as possible. Like I said, it's never going to, I won't say never, but for the majority of the time, you're never going to have a box that's going to be completely perfect. Like, even though this is lined up, I drew where these connect and I drew that straight down. But as you can see, if I drew it all the way down, it doesn't quite match up, and that's completely fine, right? That is completely fine. Depending on what type of work you're doing, right? I don't think your audience is really going to care too much. So now that we have this box laid out, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and darken the lines for the outside of the box, just so that way you guys can see it a little easier. For here, so that way you have a little bit of an easy indicator on where if you were to erase the unnecessary parts of the box in your image, you would have an idea of what that would, whatever is not in this black ink would be erased. And then maybe one day we'll talk about stacking images on top of each other for like boxes and perspective and stuff like that. Because you can, just kind of give an example, if I were to draw a box, I'm gonna have to freehand this because of what I'm trying to do here. So this is a box, and then say I want a box on top of this, right? So maybe I want a box where this is like a rectangular box here, and then maybe you see a little bit, this perspective is way off, but maybe you see something like this on top of it. I know this is messy. No perspective lines, no horizon lines, no nothing here. So no, this is completely off. But maybe you've got a box that's sitting on top of this. And then maybe you have a smaller box that's turned in another way to where maybe it's going this way for the well, you see like this. So maybe you only see this much of the box. It's a real thin box for whatever reason. And I know this perspective is way off, but I'm just kind of showing like an example, like where you can have something on top of something else and still rotate it. So that way, maybe, right, so maybe this is a 1 point perspective item. So you'd be able to rotate items with that's already on another item. That is a possibility, because that could be like a building that has some type of door to it, that's, you know, leading somewhere. So maybe this is like a building downstairs, then it's got another building here, and then maybe on top of this building is where you have your AC unit. Like that's just an example, right? And then maybe there's because maybe it's like a futuristic type setup. So maybe there's like a docking station for aircrafts or something. I don't freaking know. You can design this to your heart's content, but just to kind of give an idea. And then, you know, we have like that, and then maybe there's like railing on the side, so that way people don't fall and die after they've landed their spacecraft, their space boats or whatever, right? And then maybe you've got a docking station over here. So there's so many things you can do with perspective. Like these can, like perspective is really going to help make your worlds and stuff come together, and make them look a little bit, you know, more believable. Because all this is right here, all this is a elongated, thinned out rectangle in perspective. So, and then the lines that kind of indicate the planks or the deck, right? That would be just dividing lines, because those are having to go to some type of perspective point. They're coming from some type of perspective point, right? So these just an idea of what you can do with like 2 point perspective or 1 point perspective. So, we'll get a new piece of paper here, as that fell down to the ground. So let's do another one, because I want to show you guys the importance when it comes to perspective, the importance of making sure that your perspective lines are far apart, or they are a good distance apart. And there is like there's like a mathematical way you can do this for your images. It's called the cone of vision, and it makes sure that your images are not distorted. And I feel like for the most part you can kind of eye something and see if something's wrong with it, right? So we'll do this one where we will call Sorry, where's my eraser? Where's my eraser? Ugh, sorry, guys. So you have what you call warped perspective, right? And then down here we'll do normal. And I'll do it the same box so that way you guys can see what I mean. And we're gonna do, the box is gonna be kind of like how we talked about boxes being drawn on the horizon, above the horizon, or below the horizon. We're just gonna do it slightly below for both of them, right? So for the warp perspective, I'm gonna draw the perspective. This is the horizon line, right? I'm gonna draw the vanishing point for the warp perspective. I'm gonna draw this one for the left vanishing point. And then the right vanishing point, I'm gonna draw it right here. And I want you guys, and I'll show you guys, or I'll have this written down for you guys, because I want you guys to really see and practice warped perspective so you can get an idea of what it looks like and maybe catch it when you're drawing something. And then the normal perspective, we're going to do like we did last time. I'm going to draw it way out here. Right vanishing point. And something that's also going to play within this is also how big you draw an item. Because if I were to draw, I'll have to do multiple examples. But if I were to draw something small, like if this is where my box is, and this is supposed to be, and this is the line that I'm going to, well, guess what? When I draw these lines out, it's actually going to look like a normal box, because it's the item itself, it's so tiny that the perspective lines being where they are, me drawing it smaller kind of makes up for those perspective lines being so close. But what I'm going to do, right, so that would be if I was to draw this small, but we don't want small, right? I'm gonna draw it like a normal box like I did on the previous one. So about that size box. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna draw this line here. And what we'll do is we'll do like maybe right there, right? So now, so it's like about 3/4 of an inch, right? So roughly about the same size here. So now we're going to see what this looks like when we have these vanishing points that are extremely close versus vanishing points that are further away. If that didn't line up correctly. There we go. And then I'm going to figure out what the box here. So this is the box. And I'm going to darken these lines just a little bit. Take my time with them so that way try to draw these as straight as possible. Oops. Did I say that? But you look at this box and you see that, like, okay, I see that it's supposed to be a box, but it looks like something just doesn't look quite right. And it's because the perspective is warped. So things are a lot more closer. It's unnatural in a way. and it's causing this to be extremely distorted in a way where it really wouldn't make sense. So if you're looking from from an upside view with this distorted perspective, the item that you're looking at, let me do this. I have to draw two examples. The item that you're looking at, it's not a square. Whoa, sorry, did that wrong. It's not a square. Like, you're not looking at a square or a rectangle, right? At this point, you're looking at like a diamond shape with the distortion. Like this item, if it was to look like you're looking at more of a diamond shape item than an actual square, due to the distortion, right? So when you draw these lines out, you have to be mindful of where you had these vanishing points at, because it's going to really affect how you or your viewer sees and registers the actual object you're drawing. So I try to keep the boxes the same width, so that way you guys can see that I'm not trying to like be weird about like trying to make up anything here. But as you can see, I will do the same thing. I'm just gonna freehand these lines again. This is where the exercise comes in of going over the same line multiple times. All right, that's what I'm doing. So this box looks way more natural and more like a real box than this one does. And that's because the vanishing points are further apart. Now, if I wanted to do a warp perspective and say we're going to do above the vanishing point, right, we can still do the exact same thing. And I'm going to freehand this one, just to kind of make it a little bit quicker. It may not look as distorted because the image is a little bit smaller, but there's still some type of a distortion to this box. It may not be as much because it's not the same size as this one, but you want to be mindful of that. And I can also even draw a warp perspective with this one. So I'm going to change out the color real quick. Actually, let's do this. I'll draw a completely different line here, just so you guys can see what I mean. Because sometimes the size of the image, back up a little bit, is going to play a key role if this to show if this item is distorted, or if it's warped or distorted, or if it's working properly. And you don't have to put left vanishing point or right vanishing point every time. I'm just doing that to help indicate. So kind of similar how I did to here, right? If I drew a box that was small enough, these vanishing points technically would be at a good distance apart, right? But I'm going to take this normal, right? And I'm going to enlarge the box, but I'm going to keep the vanishing points the exact same distance, right? And I'm going to do same thing. I'm going to do it below the vanishing point, right? Oops. I know it's not, as you guys can hear my dog underneath me here. Hey, stop it. So we'll do here. Stop it. So we're going to enlarge the box. So to enlarge the box, it means I have to draw this line a little bit longer, right? Because we're making a larger box. So now that this box is longer, right, Now we're going to go ahead and line these up, because I want you to know that not only is the distance of the vanishing line, the vanishing points important, but also the size of the object that you're drawing is important as well, because just like how I mentioned, I think I mentioned in one of the previous videos, that you can have multiple vanishing points on one line, one horizon line. So there's like an infinite number of vanishing points. So if you needed to, you can just, for other objects, because you can have objects on that are 2-point perspective, just with different perspective vanishing points, like we did with this one, right? You might need to either use different vanishing points for that particular item or object, or you might need to make it smaller to, sorry, my dog's hair here, or you might need to make it smaller to make sure that that particular object is not distorted. So similar to the same box here, right? I did change a little bit so it's not as long on this side, but this is somewhat distorted. Like I see that it's a concept of a box, but it looks kind of weird, right? It looks a little off, because here I can go here and almost look like a right angle, but if I go here, that angle, it looks distorted a little bit. I'm not sure if that's one way you want to kind of maybe help gauge if your image is distorted or not, but I think once you do a few of these, you do a bunch of these, it'll be very easy for you to tell what looks distorted, what doesn't look distorted. And you'll be able to, I think, quickly realize that your vanishing points are either too close together, or the item that you're drawing is too big. And if we were to switch this around, right, I'm going to swip it around because you can, that's pretty much what it is. If I were to switch this around, now the items, the boxes that we're looking at are now above the vanishing point versus below the vanishing point. It's the same exact thing, right? Just turned 180. So this is an example, is if these items are above the vanishing point, they still look distorted if they're too close together. If this is normal, it looks a lot more natural, right? This one looks a little bit more distorted. And then of course, just to kind of make sure that I'm covering all aspects, we're gonna do a box that's not distorted for 2-point perspective on the horizon line. So we'll do horizon line, and I'm just going to do an indicator of the vanishing points. We'll do the line here. This will show that it is on the horizon line, right? So we're looking at it dead on, but we're still seeing the corner of the box here. And then we'll go here. And then we'll just quickly figure out where that's here. Now, however way you decide to, like, which lines you decide to go first, as far as which ones you're connecting to the horizon line or the vanishing points, that's up to you. As you see, I can kind of jump, and I don't have like one way, like, oh, I'm going to do the one side first and the other, or I'm going to do the widths of the box and then get all those in, and then so it's a mix between, right? This actually needs to go further up because this is the connecting point here. So as you can see, even the connecting point, it's still off, but that's not what I'm concerned about. Because if you really want it to be like, oh, I need to make sure that everything is lined up, I need to make sure that everything is horizontal, or everything is parallel, everything is like 100% correct, then you're going to need maybe more accurate tools than just a ruler, because a ruler, at least like a basic ruler that you can pick up at any store, is going to be dependent on you making sure that those lines are completely straight. So if you're wanting like straighter lines, like, I'm not saying you have to get this, so don't think that I'm saying that, but like I have something like this, which helps make sure lines are parallel to each other. So if I was to draw a line here and I needed a parallel line from that line, I would just move this up without making sure I don't move the bottom part, right? And then make sure I can do a line here, then I can go up more and expand that. And then what I could do if I wanted to, I could just go here if I needed to make more lines. This isn't a tool that, I mean, you can get, but I'm not saying that you have to, right? And you can also do it this way as well. But the thing is still, you need to make sure that this, if you're trying to make straight lines, would be parallel, right? It needs to be actually straight, because I can still do lines that are diagonal, but just parallel within themselves, right? So there's like that particular tool. You have like T-squares. You can, if you need to, you can kind of line up the rulers with the edge of the paper to kind of make sure that you're drawing straight lines that way as well. So that's why I say when you're drawing that other side of the box, don't be so stuck on it, oh, it's not lining up, I'm doing it wrong. You're fine. You're fine. So what I would like you guys to do for your exercises is I would like you guys to do 20 boxes, and I want you to move them around through all over the thing, the page. 20 boxes of warped 2-point. And so similar to how we did last time, right? If you I want you to do, you can do it different ways, right? If this is my piece of paper, right? If you want, you can have just one line across the paper. You're gonna have a vanishing point here, and then draw. If you're drawing it on a piece of paper like this here, and you're doing warped vanishing, so if you're doing a whole line across the paper, right, you would have like maybe a vanishing point here, a vanishing point here, or maybe you might move the vanishing points in. Maybe you might have like the vanishing point here and a vanishing point here, just to kind of have multiple boxes on one page. You can maybe do like 1, 2, 3, 4, right, and then literally just draw these boxes out. And of course, you're probably not going to be able to fit all 20 on one page, and I don't expect you to. But I want you guys to get used to, and y'all have lines that are going to overlap. So this is where that pencil pressure, practicing that pencil pressure is going to come in handy. But I want you guys to really see what that warp, and you can play with different vanishing points here, right? What that warp perspective is going to look like. And then maybe I'll do here, so you can have different vanishing points. You can use different vanishing points if you want to, but I want you guys to get an idea of what that warp perspective is going to look like on your paper, so that way you really have a better idea of that. Or if you want, you can do like how we've been doing, something like this, where you're drawing individual lines on your paper, and then you're doing your you're doing your vanishing point, and then you're doing your distorted box that way, right? Take your time with this. Don't rush it like I'm doing it. And then you play with how close these vanishing points are, like how close they really are, because I really want you to see the type of distortion that you can get with having vanishing points, right? Close together, and then moving those even closer, to really see like the distortion that can come with vanishing points being extremely close, or in turn, like if the item being too big, the item being too big, or you having the vanishing points too close together. And then the next thing I would want you guys to do, right, is 50 boxes. And I know that's a lot. 50 boxes of normal 2-point. And just like the other one, I want you to kind of mix it up. Have ones that are on the horizon line, have some that are above the horizon line, have some that are below the horizon line. So that way you can get a feel of what it really looks like to have normal perspective. And when you do this particular exercise, if your box seems warped, if it doesn't seem quite right for the normal perspective, then you're not going to count that box as one of the 50. You're going to be like, that box seems a little warped, so I'm going to redraw it until it looks right. And then I will count that box towards the 50. And then what you can do, if you want to get a little bit more practice, or if you kind of want to see ideas of other perspective, or 1-point perspective being used, or 2-point perspective being used, you can go online, and I would recommend trying to make sure that the image you're using is not AI, because AI is not always going to be accurate, right, with their particular drawings. Go online and look up like 1-point perspective illustrations. Look up maybe 1-point perspective. Let me see if I can see 1-point perspective. You can look. Oh, here's a good one. You can look up like 1-point perspective anime drawings. You can look up maybe 1-point perspective. Trying to think what else. Cartoon drawings. There's so many things you can look up. Like, try to find finished or semi-finished. Like, don't just look like, what I want you guys to look up is things that are not just boxes, right? I want you guys to really be able to see the type of work you can do with just a simple 1-point perspective. And I don't know. I don't want to show. I don't want to show it on YouTube, because I'm not sure when it comes when it comes to other people's work and stuff like that. But go on your whatever search engine you have, go on to whatever like boards you have, and look up. I'm just gonna show you guys. Forget it. Whatever. We're gonna do it this way. If there's any issue, then whatever. But these are some 1-point perspectives, and not all of these are, but some of these are 1-point perspectives. So this is 1-point perspective. This is a illustration. It looks like a story, right? Like, it's like she's got a sword drawn. It's in like an alleyway. So there's so many things that you can do within this particular scene, right? And there's so many things that you can add within this scene. Another one would be this one. This is 1 point perspective. Um, the perspective, the 1 point might be moved off just to this, because if this is the, sorry, if this is the horizon, this is the center. Yeah, it's usually, yeah, it's about the center. Maybe this is the vanishing point is probably somewhere like here in this area. So that's a 1 point perspective for a bus, right? And that's not something you really think of. Normally when we think of 1 point perspective, we think of like the railroad tracks. Here's an example of 1 point perspective. You've got Spider-Man, I was about to say Superman, Jesus, Spider-Man, who is, looks like he's diving to save someone who is falling down a building. You've got the person, you've got the cars, and then you've got these buildings, and all of them are going, as far as the buildings, all of them are going to this 1 point perspective. With the cars, though, they're just diagonals, but remember, you're just seeing one side of them. So you're not having to worry about seeing like the underside or whatever of the cars, which would put it at a different perspective. Trying to think what else I would know off rip that I can just look and see like, hey, this is 1 point perspective. Here's another idea of 1 point perspective, right? You've got a little bit of a curve of the building with the road, but they all join to, from what I can see right now, from a 1 point perspective area. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is 1 point. This is another example of 1 point perspective. It's just this one, the horizon line, you have a low horizon line. So now you've got a worm's eye view of this street corner. Here's another one, still 1 point perspective, right? But you are at a low horizon line. Here's another one. This is more of a neutral horizon line here. Which these are good examples. I like that. Let me see what else we can find here for 1 point, or just like a 1 point perspective, because I want to show the importance. Like, not everything has to be in 2 point perspective to convey a powerful story or interesting story. And you can, of course, create an amazing stuff with 2 point perspective as well. But I wanted to show 1 point perspective because I do feel like 1 point perspective is sometimes not given as much thought, because we normally just get this image, right? Not saying that there's anything wrong with this image, but we normally just get this image of like city buildings and like a sidewalk and a street, where in actuality you can have like an alleyway at a low point to where you have more of a story. Same here. Still another alleyway. This has got more information going on with it, more detail, stuff like that. You can see there's a set of stairs to go somewhere. Someone's got their window open, so there's more of a story here. There's so much you can do with 1 point perspective. So I know we're going over different perspectives. Right now we're touching on 2 point perspective, but I don't want you to feel like you can't create cool images with 1 point perspective. Now, for example, with this one, you're talking about more of a 2 point perspective, because even the building here, right, you're seeing the edge of it, and then even here you're seeing the edge. So these are going off into two different vanishing points. And this, we're talking about like a bird's eye view, right? Because you're seeing the tops of things. So you're seeing the top of the trash can. You're seeing a higher point of the perspective or of the building here. Same thing with this one. This is a 2 point perspective here. You've got two sides. Kind of, so if you were to do like an L shape of this car, or had this car in a box, you would see the corner of the box here, and then this goes off here, then this goes off here. Same thing with this building. You have here, here, and here. Even with the signs, you have the corner, and then these goes off here, and then these go off this corner as well. So that's an idea of like 2 point perspective, of course. So definitely look up stuff, like look up, I think this is 1 point perspective here. So many things you can do with 1 point perspective, and 2 point perspective, right? So if you want to get more ideas of what you can accomplish within perspective, go online, look up, like on my Pinterest, right? I got 1 point perspective anime drawing, right? If I want to do, let's do a comic drawing, see what we have here. You're gonna get, a lot of people, you'll see stuff like this, right? Where it's just like, you just kind of see examples of how to lay stuff out, but that's kind of it. And even within this drawing, I do like this. Well, even within this drawing, even though I feel like this is maybe kind of warped, like these might be too close together, you have, like, this is, I feel like that's warped too. You have a 2 point perspective box. That's 2.2. You have 2 point perspective boxes that are in combination with 1 point perspective boxes as well. This right here is 1 point perspective. You have this guy who's looking up to the sky, so all the buildings are angling upwards, and they're going to be, 1 point perspective on some of the buildings, not all of them. Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's like 1 point, because, I mean, you're going to have to draw the other sides of the building. So, and they all go up to one vanishing point. You're going to be talking more of like 3 point perspective on certain angles, but you can try that with 1 point perspective and see. Here's someone clearly doing practice of, now with these ones, they've got like a tilted horizon line, but I want you guys to just really focus on the basic stuff that I just taught you guys. Here's another example, right? Perspective grid, laying out the boxes, and then this is a detailed drawing, but this is 1 point perspective, and that's something I think a lot of people don't think about when they're doing stuff like that. Trying to think, if you want to go and take pictures or something like that of buildings, or look up, people have done stuff like this where they have these shots of images, and they've gone and then have been able to draw like the perspective and showing you that this particular building is 1 point perspective. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of certain things. Like, this is 2 point perspective. As you can see, they even have the grid, but you can really achieve a lot once you kind of understand some of the basics of perspective. Like this person here, this is a 3 point perspective, but it seems kind of, I'm not sure if they meant it to look kind of warped, right? Because it does have like that warped feeling, but it goes with this particular style. So there's so much, even with warped perspective, there's things that there's certain styles and stuff that you can maybe accomplish in a certain aesthetic that you're looking for, that might require for you to have maybe a little bit of a warped perspective with your images. So definitely look stuff up, find more information if you'd like, of course, regarding perspective, and see the stuff that you can really accomplish when you are dealing with just simple perspective. I think one of the things that we're so used to seeing normally is just something like this in perspective, or like this one here, right? But in actuality, you can create stuff like this and stuff like this. You actually can create really interesting stories just using 1 point perspective. And this is, how to think when you draw, with, I think that's Lorenzo brothers. I think it's two brothers, but they talk about the things that you can really accomplish when you're talking about 1 point perspective. So don't think that you're limited to this small set of images that you can accomplish with 1 point perspective. You can actually accomplish a lot. So that's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch these videos. Like I said, for your homework, 20 boxes of warp perspective and 2 points. perspective, and then 50 boxes in 2-point perspective of normal distortion, no warping. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.